Andre, tonight's the big night, the A-League Grand Final. What can we expect?
Well, if the semi-finals are anything to go by, this is going to be quite a treat. In fact, I'm joined in the studio by Ned Hall, ABC A-League commentator. Ned, thanks very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Look, I've got to say, I've been a pretty late convert to the finals format in the A-League, but this game is shaping up as a real beauty tonight, isn't it?
I think it's exactly it. I think from looking at the games last weekend and the two semi-finals, there were such good games, such engaging, entertaining matches as well, that I think everyone can't wait for this game to get underway this evening. Newcastle hosting the grand final as well. They'll be sold out very, very quickly, and so absolutely packed to the rafters in Newcastle. And the first time it's been played in a provincial city as well, and the whole town's really got behind the team.
Can I just pick something up that you said? You're a late convert to the finals. Ned, is this something peculiar in sport, that Australia has a final system, whereas most competitions around the world, it's whoever tops the table?
Exactly. Most of the big leagues around the world, there's no final system. But they play so much to the football, that you've got European Champions League and those things, you don't need to. Plus also, I think having relegation's a big factor too, because then that keeps the interest going right the way down to the wire, whereas in a 10-team league, I think the finals are vital. And
is it fair? Because obviously we've seen Sydney FC disappear, and they've been the team the whole season.
I think it is fair. Everyone knows the rules at the start of the season. That's how what sort of format is. They do get the advantage of having that home final last weekend, and Graham Arnold has repeatedly gone on about the fortress that they played as their home ground, and they didn't get the job done against Melbourne last weekend. So sadly, the season ends for them. I know he talked about changing the format a little, but I still think this probably works best as it is. Gets the finals done in 3 weeks.
Ned, you mentioned the support in Newcastle for the Jets. How important will that home ground advantage be tonight?
It has been important in past years. I think 9 of 12 have been won by the home teams, and in the A-League, the highest placed side gets to host the final. So it has been an advantage. They've also won both meetings against Melbourne Victory at home earlier on this year. In the semi-final, I think it probably played a factor as well. They were a goal down against Melbourne City, and the fans helped them get back in, along with the outrageous scorpion kick from Riley McGree as well. And I think that just the momentum that was almost built off the back of that goal really lifted the team to get the late winner. So I think it will play a part. Melbourne Victory won't be fazed by it, though. I mean, they played the villains last weekend in Sydney, and I think they'll quite happily go in there as the sort of the outsiders and the team that no one wants to win.
Do you think there is a chance that that game against Victory, which was so dramatic, so emotional for Terry Antonis, and we're seeing him there thump it into his own net and then recover somehow inside the same game, could that have taken it out of them a bit?
Look, I think there is definitely a case for that. One thing I think that helped them a little bit was they had 3 big players off the field when they went into extra time last week. They'd thrown everyone back to defence. Besart Borussia was off, Leroy George was off, and James Troisi was off the field. So they're slightly fresher, those 3 players. Plus, they've got a lot of experience. It's their 3rd grand final in 4 years. Kevin Muscat was captain of Melbourne Victory twice when they won the title in the early part of this century, under Ernie Merrick, who was their coach at the time. So they've got the experience in there as well, and I think they do thrive on these big games, particularly Besart Borussia. He nearly upset Sydney FC last season, scored the goal at the right time in the first half in last year's grand final that almost saw them steal that one as well.
And the Newcastle story, we have to look at that, because they had such a poor season last season, and yet somehow they've managed to turn it all around within 12 months.
I find it amazing. They haven't made that many changes to their playing roster. I mean, they've still got a lot of players who were part of the wooden spoon season last year who are still there this time around. I mean, really, there's Ernie Merrick has come in and he's just changed the philosophy and the approach of the players, and it's worked incredibly well. They started the season with a big win against Central Coast Mariners, put 5 past them, and they just seem to gain the confidence and momentum from that, which never seemed to fade throughout the year, despite horrible injuries and various other problems.
That said, how important is home ground advantage?
I think it is very important for them. Hopefully the playing surface pulls up okay after the Newcastle Knights were running around there last night against South Sydney. So hopefully the playing surface is in good condition. But I think the groundswell of belief in Newcastle behind this team has been very important in the success of the season. I think everyone's got back behind them. Newcastle has gone through some very dark days under Nathan Tinkler. Both of their sporting sides really were struggling, in the major sides, the Knights and the Jets. And there's a different feel around Newcastle now, and a great celebration feeling behind the team. They do need to get the job done tonight. Otherwise, I think people are in danger a little bit of thinking it's a fait accompli and that the job's done already.
What players will you be particularly keeping an eye on tonight?
I'm quite interested to see how Ronnie Vargas goes. He's the Venezuelan player they brought in. A couple of great games to start the season, then a horrific broken ankle against Brisbane Roar in the third round. And people thought that was the season gone for him, but he recovered quicker than expected, and he will be an important player. And I think for him to have a big game tonight would go a long way for Newcastle to win the game. You can't go past Besart Berisha for Melbourne victory. He's just got a knack in the big games.
Now, Andrew would ask you at this point what your tip is for the game. Just a quick one. What do you reckon?
It's really hard
Not just
to
a
pick.
tip, I want a margin too.
I honestly can see this going to extra time tonight. I think it's that close. I can't split these two sides. I'd give it to Newcastle, shading it. I'll say 2-1 if you want, pushing on the score, but only because the home ground advantage might just be enough to get
That's
them
what
there.
you want from a grand final, though, is a close, tough match.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we'll get, definitely.
Hang on, if we go to extra time and still no result, what happens?
Goes to penalties after that, as we
okay.
had penalties
Watch
last year
it,
as well.
don't
Yes, yeah, exactly. And it'll be on News Radio around Australia as well tonight. You can tune in wherever you are.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ned.
Thanks, Ned.
Andre?